you naimbag nga rabi iyo amin kakabsat. Tonight I will continue the introduction to psychology. Last week we focused on the very basic, the history of psychology that was started in Germany by a man named Wundt, who started that psychology in Germany. And at the time when it started, he focused more psychology as a mental process. It has to do more of the mind. And then we learn about different other psychologists that follows after him, even including maybe the most controversial and the most popular and is considered a genius, Sigmund Freud, who believed on the unconscious. There are other psychologists along with that that I haven't discussed last time, but I'm going to discuss tonight, like Carl Jung. Carl Jung is a very interesting psychologist who I would say a disciple of Sigmund Freud, who believed also in the unconscious, but he still is even very interesting because he said he posited or he presented the so-called collective unconscious, that our behavior today is just a byproduct of our ancestors in the past. The way they behave, the way they think, it's being stored in the memory of different people in the past civilization. So anyway, that's a kind of a more technical, but I will continue tonight as I promised, because last time as a review, we study those different psychologists, and we have a guy named John Watson, who is a behaviorist. Would you imagine that from psychology as a mental process, it shifted to behaviorism? Because the contention of John Watson is you cannot study scientifically the so-called the sensations or the mind or the thinking. You cannot study that in the laboratory. He said, in order for psychology to be scientific, it has to be observed in the behavior, how people behave, like anger, things like that, or when people laugh, when people are hungry. So it's what behaviorism is. So from 1920 to 1960, that predominates psychology. So behaviorism become the biggest thing. And slowly there is a switch again. About 1962, it goes back again to looking psychology as a mental process. So you have now the cognitive psychology, but we are going to do that in a few minutes. Okay, let me go straight now to the psychology in the Philippines. Maybe some of you are already aware of this, or maybe others are not. So I would like to continue psychology in the Philippine settings. The first psychologist in the Philippines was the fellow named Agustin Alonso. Okay, Agustin Alonso. In 1926, he received his PhD in experimental psychology from the University of Chicago. Okay, everybody got it? Agustin Alonso. And he became the head of the first psychology department of the University of the Philippines. So the first psychology department was set up on that year, also 1926. But later on the other hand, the University of Santo Tomas was the first institution to offer undergraduate, master's, and doctoral degrees. So it's like there's a race, and it's always been like that. it's like a boxing match between Pacquiao and maybe what's this guy now, like Pacquiao and Hatton, or Pacquiao and Mayweather. So it's always been like that. I think there's a race between these two universities. Okay. Then most of the pioneers in psychology in the Philippines obtained their training from the United States. I think we should be more aware about that. Okay. There's no such thing as original Filipino psychology. We'll learn if the Americans, we learn it from the Americans, and the Americans maybe learn it from Germany, from Wundt and from Sigmund Freud, and then carried to the United States. So we cannot, I would say, strike it out. The history strike it out that we just started it in the Philippines out of the blue. No, it's all, most of our psychologists obtain their training from the United States. Then the second person in the Philippines is Senforoso Padilla. Okay? Senforoso is Inforoso Padilla. He obtained his doctorate from the University of Michigan. Brad John, madungog ko niyo, Brad?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Sulaw ba? Sulaw, makita nyo, dili ra. Okay ra?
Okay naman, medyo ko lang. Okay naman?
Kaya
Yeah.
nagamit ko special light nga
Oh,
magatabang sa akong reading. Okay?
okay, okay yan. Oh.
Okay ra? Okay.
Oh.
So he got his psychology from the University of Michigan, and he established the first psychological clinic in the country at the University of the Philippines also. Okay, so the first psychology department is UP, but there's no clinic yet until this fellow name I have to read it, name Sinforoso Padilla, who obtained his doctorate degree of psychology, started establishing a clinic in 1928, in 1932 at the University of the Philippines. The third is Jesus Perpignan, kind of unique family name, Perpignan. In 1933, he got his doctorate in psychology from the University of Iowa. He set up the Far Eastern University Psychological Clinic. Okay. FEU. Okay. I always heard about this, but I never know where is FEU is, but I just presume this is a big university in Manila. Dako ni siya, no, ang FEU.
Oo, oo.
So, ikatulo sila. Yeah. Psychological Clinic. Then the fourth is Elias Bumatay. Okay? Elias Bumatay. He was armed with a doctorate of educational psychology. So there's a special branch of psychology that focus on education. So that's what his doctorate is, educational psychology from the University of Texas. Wow. Longhorns, University of Texas. I presume this is in Austin, yeah. In 1940, he became the Dean of the College of Education at National University. That's why I was asking earlier, where is National University? So they started their psychology program in 1940. Okay, I forget. We'll have a little, I want everybody to relax. We'll guided meditation, okay? I still want to lead you to a colder place, okay? Because it's been very hot in our country this time. Let's have a little escape, a little fantasy, okay? So everybody close your eyes, please. And then we'll take a deep breath. Okay. Inhale. Hold your breath. Exhale. Then inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Hold your breath. Then exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. I'm going to take you this time to the biggest state of the United States. It is really separated from the mainland because in between you have Canada. I'm going to take you all for a trip because we were in Denver, Colorado last time. I'm going to take you to another spot in the biggest state of Alaska. Much, much colder than Denver. So after our vacation in Denver, everybody packed their belongings, the bus, or we took the train down to the airport of Denver, and then we took the plane that will take us again back to San Francisco, to the airport of San Francisco near the Golden Gate or the Golden Bridge. So we are all on board. We fly towards San Francisco. And then as the plane was about to land in San Francisco Airport, the pilot announced, "Oh, look to your left. That's where the famous Stanford University is. And then to your right, that's the San Francisco Bay. And there's the Golden Gate." Wow, it's amazing to see the very famous bridge of San Francisco. The plane landed, and then we are told that in 1 hour, the plane that is leaving to Anchorage, Alaska, uh, will take off. So we're all in a hurry looking for gate 71 that says Anchorage, Alaska, taking the United Airlines plane. So we all just walk fast, pulling our carry-on luggage, and went to the gate 71 for Alaska. And then we all stay in line, kind of hungry, but we know meal will be served in the air as we leave. So we're all lining up, and one by one, we enter the counter, we show our passport, our vaccination card, and the seniors were blessed because they didn't have to stay in line, they just go straight. So we were all looking through this tube, the tube that will take us to the plane. And it's cold. Alas, San Francisco is kind of cold also. So there's no heater in the tube. So we just endure the cold. We were in jackets anyway. And finally, everybody are seated. We were sitting down now on the plane, putting the earphone on our auditory canal on our ears, and then everybody turn on the individualized TV screen, TV monitor, and it's unbelievable how many channels and movies that we could see. Some open the cartoons, Some open the Western, old Western movie, cowboys. Other open some contemporary movies, Clint Eastwood, and even Superman. So slowly the plane take off. The pilot says, "Everybody, please put on your seatbelt." And the plane where is ready to take off in the next 3 minutes. So we taxi the plane taxi on the airport and then just take off. And then slowly up in the air, the waiter were carrying food for everybody, whatever we want that we could eat. So we just eat and enjoy and relax. It's going to be another 5 hours flight to Anchorage. Then to accelerate, we saw the airport, but it's just unbelievable. Everything is so wide. The mountain is all covered with snow, tall mountains with snow, more ice than Denver, Colorado. As we landed, uh, with the it's kind of tricky because of the persistent falling of the snow. But the pilot was so skilled that we're able to make it safely. And as we get off, the stewardess already saying, "You guys, folks, be ready with your heavier jackets. It's going to be cold. And if you have special covering on your head, gloves on your hands, you better wear them now." So we did it. We got off. A bus took us, and it's like an hour travel towards a tourist spot, which was once a lake, and yet now it's freezing. But in a few days, it's going to melt, and we can see the stream, the lake, and the river. So we were there. We reached our destination, and as we reached the highway near the log cabins that we're going to stay, just a herd of caribou. We were all so amazed. They are so huge, bigger. Some are bigger than the cows, and yet they have a lot of horns in them. The caribou, and then farther we saw a herd of reindeers, and even to the left we saw some uh, grizzly bears. Wow! And just all those gigantic pine trees are all over, and the road is just covered with snow. The tire has even chain on it so that it would not slip. And finally, we reach our destination. It's about to get dark, so we all uh, settle down. We went to inside the restaurant. This time, the smell is quite different because it's like a gamey smell. We can smell fish, smoked fish. We can smell smoked deer meat, and the fireplace is just burning with more pine woods. And then we eat mashed potato, salmon, and deer meat, and steak. And then when it's the dessert time, they bring pies, and we're all amazed because they serve ice cream. Even it's very cold, they still serve ice cream. So somebody said that's the American way. So those cake and pie, and with the vanilla and chocolate and strawberry ice cream. After that, we went to the bed, our respective bed, and then just look outside. It's still kind of bright because of the so-called white nights phenomenon that it will, even at midnight, it's still bright in Alaska. So we can see outside. And man, as we look outside, we can see those wildlife. There are deers, there are caribou, and even bears outside. And then we are all tired, and then we fall asleep. In the morning, the guide said, now the snow is melting in the river. Everybody should be ready to fish. And man, as we look on this river, it is so unbelievable because schools of salmon just leaping and moving. They are just going upstream and probably going to spawn. They will lay eggs, and then we throw our hook and line. And man, as soon as this hook with a bait hit the water, boom, a big salmon bites it. Almost everyone have a bite really, and we catch the salmon, and somebody for fee would just clean the salmon. When we return to the cabin, outside it's very cold, but with the fire and the charcoal, we grill those salmon. And man, one of the most delicious fish that we only eat it with crackers, and we're looking, where's the rice? And somebody said, there's a rice, but it only costs like $5 a pound. Man, that's quite high. But anyway, we said, okay, we'll buy rice and cook the rice on a rice cooker, and then we just eat that salmon with a little vinegar, little soy sauce, and hot sauce. But while eating, the snow just keep coming down and coming down. That somebody was really smart. I think two or three brought a can of condensed milk, and with a can opener, then somebody just some of the of our companions just pick up snow from the leaves of the pine tree that they can reach and put it in a big clean stainless basin, and we put all the condensed milk, put a little vanilla, and mix it, and we eat it. That's the most delicious snow ice cream. We're just all excited. And then after we eat, it's time to go back to our lesson. Okay? Okay. Nagmata po mo, Klo? Klo? Ah?
Oo.
Oh, nagato. Next time, I want probably, I want Neil or Sheila to lead us in a meditation also, okay? Pero babalik tayo, okay? We will, we will go now to uh, another guy. Now, I think I was talking about this fellow who started the Department of Psychology at the National University, okay? Then this one, you might be familiar. I think she wrote a lot of books. Estefania Aldaba Lim, the first Filipino to receive a doctorate in clinical psychology. Could you imagine? A lady, Estefania Aldaba Lim, received her doctorate of clinical psychology from the University of Michigan. She started then the psychology program at the Philippine Women's University in 1948. Okay, even me who is not familiar, I know where it is. I think it's near PCU, Philippine Christian, in is that tough there in that area? Uh,
Yes,
so
yes. There's somewhere there.
that's where the church used to be with Judito Aton, right? Close
Yes,
by
yes.
San
Nearby.
Marcos. So okay, so that's the lady, Estefania Aldaba Lim in 1948. Okay, the next is Alfredo uh, Lagmay. In 1955, this is later, obtained his degree in experimental psychology from, look at this, big deal, experimental psychology from Harvard. Then he headed the psychology department of the University of the Philippines for 22 years, since 1955. So he was the head of the psychology department of UP till 1977. Wow. I think at the time that we're in Baguio, Bro John, he was still the chairman, the head
Mm.
of that department, Alfredo Lagmay. So then later on, it's Mariano Ubias. Okay, his specialization is comparative and physiological psychology. A doctorate on that, comparative and physiological psychology. He graduated from Stanford University. You know, Stanford, this is also like a competition of Harvard. This is in San Francisco, I think. Yeah, one of the best school. So in 1955, he led the personnel department of Caltex Philippines. Okay. Now we can understand that companies like Caltex, Coca-Cola, they have a very special psychologist. They needed that to make their business more efficient. That's why today you heard people saying, "Oh, HR department." Usually they run the HR department. Most of these people are majoring in industrial psychology. So maybe among the pioneers, he's the first one who did not go to an institution, a school, but became uh, he became the head personnel of Caltex Philippines. The number seven, I presume you must have heard about him. I don't know if he's still alive, but while he was in college, he was still alive. I read his book. Very good. He's a very good psychologist. He's a priest. His name is Jaime Bulatao. He's very popular, and I would never forget his description about the psyche of the Filipino. He said the Filipinos are like it's like we have a split label personality. That's what he says, because we are saints on Sunday but live like a devil for the rest of the week. That's what he says. He's known for that. Okay, and he's a psychologist. Oh, and he is a Jesuit. He is a Jesuit, and that's why it's natural for him to work for a school run by the Jesuits, which is the Ateneo. Okay, Ateneo de Manila. So that's what Father Bulatao is known for. He is a graduate. Uh, well, just one moment, please. Bear with me because the the air is the wind of that fan is blowing my notes. I have to go back to that. Um, okay, Jaime Bulatao, SG or Jesuits, get his doctorate in clinical psychology from Fordham University. Fordham is in New York, okay, 1961. He established the Department of Psychology at Ateneo de Manila. Ateneo de Manila in 1961. In 1962, these psychologists, these pioneers worked together and established the PAP, PAP, um, Papa Alpha Papa, Psychological Association of the Philippines. So they come up with that association among the psychologists. Then there is a movement later on to make psychology in the Philippines indigenous. They are trying to make it Philippinized, okay? And this is headed by the guy named Virgilio Enriquez of the University of the Philippines. He attempted to indigenize psychology, but I think it didn't work that well, okay? Because it is just hard. If we want to indigenize, that means we'll quit using American books, okay, and just come up with our own. But until now, I didn't see really uh, a psychology book from the scratch written by a Filipino. It is always based on the American, uh, in the American experience. Okay, so there was an attempt. I don't know his motive why he do this, but he was trying to indigenize the psychology. So look at this. That in 1920 to 1960, for about 40 years, the one that predominates, the school of thoughts that predominates is John B. Watson's theory of behaviorism. Behaviorism. That to make psychology as a science, it has to be experimented. It has to be empirical. It has to be observed. That's why he said it's not mental processes because you cannot observe the mind. It has to do more with the stimulus and response, reward and punishment, studying rats, studying rabbits, and stuff like that. Dogs, classical conditioning, operant conditioning, and reward. Like, for instance, a rat. If the rat will go to uh, go to the corner that the experimenter would like to go, the experimenter will give food, and then later on he will ring a bell. Whenever the bell rang, he put food in the corner, and then the rat goes. So every time the rat behave as expected by the experimenter, he will always reward with food, like that. So there are more. That's the behaviorism 1920 to 1960. Then 1960 to the present, we go back to the mental processes. Remember this, as I have said, that uh, psychology should be seen as a synthesis, that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. It started like mental process, then Watson shifted to behaviorism for 40 years. And could you imagine most of our pioneers in the Philippines have their training during the time that behaviorism was the most predominant concept, that it is being reduced to the behaviorism. And we'll go to that in a little detail right now, okay? So those are the Filipino fathers of psychology. We'll go to the different perspectives or in psychology. One is the psychodynamic approach, okay? Psychodynamic approach. This is actually the developed by Sigmund Freud. As I said, he's the most controversial and well-known personality in the history of psychology. Everybody know Freud. When you talk about interpretation of dreams, when you talk about id, ego, and superego, like the id is the one that is using the instinct. The superego is the conscience. That's why you don't want to, even if you want something, your urges want to steal that something, the superego said no, no. That's our conscience. And then the ego is the one It's like the referee between the two. Very interesting. And his theory about the conscious and the unconscious. That most of our behavior today are the result of the unconscious uh, things in our mind. So he developed that, and according to him, according to this theory, this perspective state that much of our behavior stems from unconscious processes, conflict between biological instincts and society's demands and early family experiences. Uh, it's cited here, just like, for instance, like the instinct, just like aggression and sex. Even if a person have that unconscious and that passion and that desire, but the societal's demand, no, don't do that because you are not matured enough, you are not married yet, you don't have a job yet, and it is wrong, we outside of the marriage band. Okay, so Freud is saying there's already a conflict from the very beginning because of that. The unconscious wanted it, desire for it, but society's demand said no. And that's really true today. Okay? That's how we deal with it. But because we understand that the Bible said so, that this to avoid fornication. Those are some of the example. And we will follow God. Okay? But the point is, it's causing conflict in the inside of the person. And this is very interesting because Paul mentioned about this in the book of Romans. He said, the things that I want to do, okay, or that I need to do, I don't. And the things that I don't supposed to do, I do. So that's the same principle there. And then Freud was saying that these are some of the pressures. We merely force them this desire for aggression and sexual desires. We force them out of awareness into the unconscious so that they affect our dreams, slips of speech, or mannerisms, and may even manifest themselves in emotional problems. Okay? So usually we repress, we force them out of awareness because they are wrong. Our conscience are telling them they are wrong, but sometimes they will affect our dreams. So Sigmund Freud probably have one of the best study about the interpretation of dreams. And he said even the slips of speech, sometimes unconsciously it will just come out on the way a person talk, you know, about this repressed behavior, the unconscious. And then uh, sometimes it may even cause emotional problems. So the psychodynamic theory was the basis for the therapeutic approach that Freud called psychoanalysis. So Freud, uh, he was a physician anyway, and then became a psychologist. His approach to therapy is called psychoanalysis, which is still widely used today. Psychoanalysis. Then the 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 assumption is that only by studying. Uh, okay, I have to look again to this notes that I have. Okay, the next, that is the psychodynamic theory. The second theory is the behavioral approach. This is John Watson that we're talking about, behaviorism. Behaviors are activities of people or other organisms that can be observed by others. According to John Watson, only by studying what people do could psychology be considered a science. It is on what they do. It's not on their mind. So totally opposite to the so-called uh, mental processes. He wants to really focus on the outward expression, the behavior, the action. That's why, along with this, is the theory of stimulus and response. This is called SR psychology, is an offshoot of behaviorism. In fact, these people, they don't even care anymore. The extreme um, is that they don't consider anymore the so-called mental processes. They don't. For them, it is like the black box. If you talk about mental processes like the black box, there's nothing there. They don't consider those mental processes because they said you cannot experiment the mind. So they just focus on the so-called behavior, stimulus and response. Like the stimulus is the food, and the response is uh, eating. And a good behavior is rewarded, then a bad behavior is being punished. And the third is the cognitive approach. Cognitive approach. Um, it is a reaction to the narrowness of behaviorism. It is concerned with mental processes. Okay. So again, I would reiterate this. Psychology from one started like focus on mental processes, but in 1920 it shifted to behaviorism. They don't discuss, they don't look mental processes as that important, but it is the behavior like anger, things like that, or um, with I would say violent behavior, anything that has to do with action that can be observed, like helping behavior, like people will help. When do people help, for instance? Do people help when they are alone watching an incident or when they are with others? That is behaviorism that can be studied, that can be experimented according to Watson. And they found out in experiment 1,000 times. He said, for instance, in 1,000 times, you will find out that when you are alone watching uh, an incident like somebody collapse, you tend to help. But when you are with others, you tend not to. You don't help because of the diffusion of responsibility, like that. There are more people. Means you are not. It doesn't solely rest upon your shoulder. So that's one of the things they do. And cognitive has to do more of mental processes. Like, for instance, it is the mental activity of thinking, remembering, and reasoning. That is cognitive. That is now the trend of our psychology today, these days. Cognitive. That it is the mind that controls behavior. It is the mind that decide what is wrong and right. That you are responsible to your behavior. So the thinking, the reasoning, and the remembering. And another model here, another perspective, aside from cognitive approach, is the biological or behavioral neuroscience approach. Okay, that that's our behavior, our personality is affected by what's going on inside our system. It is concerned with how the brain and nervous system underlie behavior and mental processes. The nervous system, including primarily the brain and the endocrine system, are studied to determine the biological causes of behavior. For instance, I learned this many years ago. I think 1992, while taking up my master's in the University of San Carlos, this has been discussed by our professor. Like, for instance, depression. When a person is depressed, the reason is very diversified. There are people who are depressed because of the food they eat in the morning. There's a food that may cause depression. You observe yourself. So that's the idea of the biological or behavioral um, experience approach. There are food, so-called, that might cause depression, and the brain will trigger so-called neuro hormones that would cause depression, or can cause us have a feeling of euphoria. Uh, uh, it could be in one side, it can be depression. On the other side, it can be uh, feeling high. Okay, so we'll go to that, because remember this, what I have already said before. In this model, in this perspective, the brain is just so wonderful and amazing. It has 100 billion neurons or cells. Could you imagine that process these things? And it has 100 trillion neuroconnectors or synapses that connects every neuron. That's where sensations, that's where communication takes place. And so that's how it works. And these psychologists who rely on this believe that even the endocrine system will determine the causes of behavior. Just like I said, depression, a biological perspective would study the abnormal changes in norepinephrine. Okay, there are two words here that are very quite technical. No, but this would help us. And this is just, don't worry about this so much, but this is just laying down the foundation, while later on psychology focus on these different areas, like how they covered everything and why they operate in this specific direction. So norepinephrine, norepinephrine, and then the serotonin. These are neurotransmitters or chemicals uh, produced in the brain that are believed to have an effect on a person's moods. So when this neurotransmitter is in the critical level like low, then the tendency, it will cause depression. So what is norepinephrine? I did a quick study this afternoon on this. Norepinephrine says it plays an important role in your body's fight or flight responses. Like when you see danger, for instance, when somebody is trying to attack you, this hormone will work. Your brain will trigger this neurotransmitter to cause you to fight or flight. And the third thing now that they're talking about, there's another F: fight, flight, and freeze. Don't do anything, just freeze. Okay? This, what is responsible to this is that norepinephrine. Then the serotonin is a chemical that carries messages between nerve cells in the brain and throughout your body. Serotonin plays a key role in such body function as mood, sleep, digestion, nausea, wound healing, bone health, blood clotting, and sexual desire. Serotonin is a good So we say neurotransmitter triggered by our brain. These are hormones that can responsible for a good mood. There are supplements now. In fact, there are some medicines called serotonin that are artificially made, but our brain have that natural neurochemical. So the idea here of the physiological basis of behavior is our own body. Something that needs to be understood. When women are not in the mood during their menstrual cycle, that is triggered by hormone. And there are hormone really that can make you feel good. And one of them is the what's this? Is the adrenaline. Adrenaline can you will have a high feeling. People will jump off the cliff into a waterfalls just to have that kind of feeling. That for some weird reason, that's one of my favorite thing to do. I like jumping from the top, like a rock, where there is a waterfalls. The feeling is so great afterwards. It's like I can feel almost like it. I don't know, maybe not the right word, but it takes forever for my feet to hit the water. You jump on maybe a 5, 7 story high cliff, and there's water underneath, man. So it's like that. We don't have to keep banging our head sometimes because there are really hormones, biological and physiological basis of our behavior. So we'll go back to the idea that it is really a synthesis. There's no one schools of thought that answers it all. It's not just behaviorism. They have some point on behaviorism, but there's also a very good point on cognitive. There's also a very good point on the concept of like functionalism, and then the mental processes. So the idea is more like a combination. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Then we have also the phenomenological or humanistic approach. This focuses on the subjective and personal experience of events known as the individual's phenomenology and on the ride for personal growth. So this one is more very subjective. Like each person is different. We cannot always demand that others should be like us. That's the reality. Even in siblings, like two brothers, even in twins, they are not exactly the same. That's phenomenological and being subjective. That's why when we do our group processing, there's not everybody are the same. We look into what they feel inside. We look into their almost to their subconscious, and it is called humanistic because it emphasizes those qualities that distinguish people from animals. This is a direct opposite to the behaviorism. Like it treats people in a special way. It is non-judgmental. You are different than me, and me different than you. It's like that. What's going on inside? Because no two people have identical experience in life, you know. So that that uh, that 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 differs. So even in the group dynamics that I'm doing or group facilitating, I always anticipate that everyone is different. We look into their subconscious. We want to see how they feel, what they feel, the pain that they had been through, and what are their expectations, what are their fears, what are their dreams. That's very important. That falls into that category. Then the next is the socio-cultural approach. Studies the ways by which social and cultural uh, is the cultural context is considered in order to understand behavior. The environments influence behavior. A person's cultural context should be considered in order to understand behavior. Okay, I like this. I do this when I have American visitors. Or if there are Filipino who are going to the States that I know, I'll do this also. This cross-cultural awareness, okay? For instance, uh, the socio-cultural will really affect how we act and behave. The Filipinos are collectivists. That's why we are very public, you know. Everybody is an extension. We are close-knit. But the West, especially America, are very individualistic. So there's no culture that is in superior than the other. We cannot judge America by our culture, and America cannot judge us by their culture. So there is the concept of cross-cultural. For instance, uh, in the collectivist culture like us, we are very personal, okay? Even if we meet a person for the first time, we treat them like our friend already, you know? We warm to them. We ask any questions. Are you married? How many children you have? How much is your shoes? How much is your watch? That's collectivist. But there will be a conflict if we will do that to the Americans because their culture is individualistic, is impersonal. Ours is personal, theirs is impersonal. Like you don't ask an American, why are you not married? How much is your sunglasses? How much is your watch? The point is, they are impersonal. Do not ask personal questions. I always tell them that the people that are going to the States, ask them non-personal question like, ah, have you watched TV? Have you watched the TV? How's the game between the uh, Golden State Warriors and I would say Houston Rockets? They like that. It's outside of themselves. They like to talk weather. They like to talk jobs. So it's the good question for you to ask to an American is, what do you do? Okay, job. Do not say, are you married? No, don't do that. Or how much is your salary? Don't do that. Okay. So this is how cultural issues, socio-cultural issues affects behavior. Again, they are individualist. We are collectivist. So there is the thing called culture shock. You go to the US, man, it seems they are not friendly. Yes, because they are impersonal. They are individualistic. But later on, when they get to know you, they will become the sweetest people that you know. You know, I think Brother John Patricio experienced that. I know you have. I just presume you have very close people in your life who are Americans. Me too. They are just like my sisters, like my mother, like my uncle. They give me a hug. If they know you already, but at first, never expect that they will warm to you. You go to the church in the States, most likely nobody will talk to you afterwards. Nobody will shake your hands. That could happen. But that's their culture. They are impersonal. In the Philippines, Americans will find it very nosy because we keep asking, how old are you? They don't don't do that. Okay. So like if you're asking an American lady, do not ask for her age. You know what I mean? That's the thing. So the socio-cultural will affect behavior. I think Brother John, when he go to the States, he will shift. Here, it's okay. Okay lang yan pag dito sa Pilipinas. Hindi ba? Na magkano ang sweldo mo? Sa Amerika, huwag mong gawin yan. Hindi ba? Oh. So ganito, we shift. Like me, when I go to the US, as I shift to the American driving system in the highway, that follow rules strictly. In the US, I shift from my Filipino of just waving from traffic to traffic, do not even following the lane here. I would not do that in the States. Also, I will not do my Filipino thing there. I will not ask those personal questions. Okay? I hope you got that point there, that the sociocultural perspective is very important in psychology. For instance, another thing in their culture, at 18 years old, a son or a daughter is ready to go independent. They can tell their mom and dad, Dad, I want to move out. I want to have my own apartment. That's okay. But in the Philippines, what do you feel about that? Pag 18 ng anak mo at mayroon kayong bahay, do you think you will be happy when you say, Dad and Mom, magsarili na ako, magbo-board na ako doon sa kuan? Hindi yan pwede sa atin, ano? Yan. Para bang in general, iwan ko pa, hindi pa, wala pong nakita na gano'n na Pilipino na yung mga anak pag nag-18, kanya-kanya na. Mayroon ba? Do you know anybody, Brother John, who is like that?
Wala.
Wala, no? Oh. So the point here is very
Malayas
clear.
lang.
Yan. Pero sa Amerika, that is very common. That is very common. That's the norm. So kaya nga ang pinakamaganda nito, never judge. Totoo yung sinabi ng Panginoon, don't judge so that you will not be judged. Sa psychology, ganyan din. Itong socio-cultural perspective is very, very important. It's very, very important. Remember this, the Asian, including Filipino, we are collectivists. In fact, even in making decisions, the way we behave, we cannot just make decision by ourselves. We usually consult to the group. Hindi ba? Ganyan tayo. Brad, ano kaya dito, Brad? Ano yan? Pero Americans usually, who are individualists, they can be what they want to be. Individual decision is okay. You make your own decision. The Filipino, magkukonsulta pa tayo. Ano? Kasi pangit naman pag hindi ko sabihin sa uncle ko, sa aking auntie, sa nanay at tatay ko. So, yan sa ating collectivist society. We are group determined. While individualistic society, they are self-determined. Yan ang isa sa mga bagay. So, yun ang sa cultural approach. Okay. I think we will end on that part tonight. Okay. So much with the introduction. Next time, we'll already start hitting we'll already start hitting the waters. Okay. I just want you all to have those background. They are long-winded, but I hope it will help us to understand psychology. That is not just one theory. It is a combination of many theories. That every theory have its role, its purpose, and its advantage. We will not throw away these theories, okay? The best approach is the gestalt, that the whole, the combination is better than the sum of its parts. There is no one theory that can handle it all. It is a combination of all the theories. Again, I would like to summarize that psychology, therefore, this is the final definition. It is a science of human behavior and mental processes. Okay? Kino-combine na natin. Yung mental process, kasi yun ang nag-conflict eh. Itong behaviorism ni Watson at yung mental processes ni Wundt, ni Sigmund Freud. So, kino-combine na. Ito ang pinaka-meaning na talaga. Psychology is the science of human behavior and mental processes. We combine them both, the behavior and the mental processes. You will find out. In fact, the more I do counseling, the more I realize that this theory are very true. The concept of the mental processes is so comprehensive and deep, okay? That when I counsel, for instance, somebody is really depressed today, It's today, for instance. No matter what I do, listening and doing guided meditation, listening to her feeling right now. Oh, when I ask her, for instance, this happened many times. Can you please close your eyes? I want you to remember the earliest time in your life that you feel pain and sadness. And most of the time, this 45 years old will go back to when she was 3 years old, when she was hard, so much discipline, like excessive punishment, or someone is hurt because she was abandoned, she was left alone in the terminal at 3 years old. Okay, so there are a lot of things that happen to us today. Why we feel this way today? Because of the things that are repressed in our unconscious. If you ask me, man, Sigmund Freud is really correct. There are so many things we can learn from him in the unconscious. In fact, history is very workable. When we do counseling and processing, we can use a lot of history, even dream interpretation like that. You know, so like I said, every theory that we are talking about, we are just so grateful that as early as 1920s, we have Filipinos who are gifted with intellectual ability and went to the United States as early as 1920 and become doctors of psychology, whether it is experimental, behavioral, educational, industrial psychology. Wow, the Philippines is not really left behind. We learn it early, okay? We learn it early. The challenge we have now is still that people have, there's like a stigma, like they're afraid to go to a counselor or a therapist because they thought they will be labeled crazy if they go for counseling. And that is totally erroneous, totally false, right? We can go to counseling, even preachers, even me, sometimes I open up myself when I see people who who have the ability to listen and to process things. I talk about my personal, I would say, trauma because I almost died. I was in front of my vehicle and it flattened, really hit a tree. I am only 2 inches away from death. And now, if I'm riding in front of the vehicle and then suddenly it can hit a pathhole while I'm asleep, man, there's a nightmare. There's a flashback. It's like that. You know, everybody needs help. When we do this, when we reach out to people someday, we listen to their problems, is the most healthiest thing. We can reach their soul, their inward, their unconscious part by doing that. So someday, when we have the opportunity, we can have a more applied approach using this in our group dynamics, in our biblical counseling. Okay, uh, I would tell everybody that we are not talking about the so-called professional counselors, people with license. We are not going to that, but we are doing this in a spiritual way that everybody can do. Okay, and we can do so much more. Uh, it's good to do this not to be paid. Okay, but those who have the chance to go to a formal training, get your masteral and doctorate, that's good too. And I just hope you will you will become more efficient in serving the Lord. But if you tend to be isolated, like in a pedestal, like you could hardly interact anymore with the average people, then that's also counterproductive. So the
Brother
point is,
Richard.
yes, hello.
Yes, Brother Richard. How do you
Yes.
differentiate? How do you differentiate a study of psychiatry in medicine? It is a subject. It is a course in medicine,
Okay.
psychiatry,
Yeah, that's
and those
the
who graduated from BA psychology.
okay.
They
Psychiatry,
are. How do you
psychiatry.
interlink them to
Yeah.
human behavior or human thinking?
Okay.
They are. Masabi mo
Psych
ba mag
yung parang pinag-isa or okay, ganito Brad. Psychologists usually use talk therapy. Like we talk to people, we listen to people, we go into their deeper feeling, while psychiatrists they started
Hello?
they started as medical doctors. So to be a psychiatrist, you have to get your MD first, Doctor of Medicine, and then you will have your further specialization of understanding, studying like the behaviors, So psychiatrists are the one who give the medicines. Okay, when somebody is depressed, and that happened to me already when I do counseling, and there's no improvement, the person is still depressed. I usually refer them to a psychiatrist because only the psychiatrist can prescribe antidepressant medicine, for instance, or antipsychotic medicine. Psychologists and counselors cannot prescribe. So, that's the big difference there, because psychiatrists already started. Like I said, they are already doctors. Okay, they are already MD. Then their specialization, like others go to orthopedic, pediatrician. Their specialization is psychiatry. So yun ang kaibahan, brother, dyan. Okay? So, huwag tayong prescribe ng medicine, Hindi natin, lalo na kahit nga yung mga psychologists na mga licensed, hindi sila nag-prescribe. Ipadala nila pag hindi na kaya sa talk therapy, yun yung sa mag-uusap lang ba? At counseling. Pag hindi natin kaya, talagang ang depression very severe na, doon na yun. Doon na psychiatrist. Binibigyan na sila ng gamot. Yan. Okay, mayroon pang question?
Okay,
Pag-up
sino
lang,
mga
Brad
kailangan?
Richard.
Ano, Brad?
Pwede pala, Brad Richard.
Can you be a little louder, Brad? Hindi ko masyadong marinig.
Ano daw, Ibon? Pakilakas mo.
Okay. Si Brad, ulitin niyo, Brad.
Robotic.
Our study in psychology to the robotic.
Malabo, brother Mon. Malabo.
Oo, hindi ko masyadong maintindihan.
Malabo.
May na-signal, Brad.
Hindi na signal.
Asa man siya? Saan banda siya, Brad, John?
Sa Cavite siya, bro, sa Kwan.
Mahina ang signal, ano?
Oo.
Baka yung tanong na yun makakatulong sa atin. Ano kaya yung, naintindihan mo yung tanong niya?
Hindi rin eh. Robotic ang dating niya. Kailangan ng psychiatric yung Kwan. Psychiatry yung kanyang signal.
Kailangan ng kuan yun. Kailangan ng
medicine na.
Kailangan ng medicine ang Globe at saka PLDT, ano? Pati sa Dumaguete, ganun. So, wow. I hope hindi masyadong na kuan ba, that too much information tonight na hindi kayo na overloaded, pero Gagawin talaga natin ito. Maganda sana pag nasa face-to-face talaga kasi ma-illustrate ko ito sa board o ano. Pero ang kuhan ko lang na I'm not good in making PowerPoints. Yung ano. I know ang iba ginagawa nila ma-PowerPoints ano yun. Pero yung pang-introduction lang yun. So, mayroon pa katanungan?
Hello, Brad.
Baka clear na, Brad.
Follow up lang. Oh, Brad.
Okay.
Hello, Brad.
Yes,
Narinig
Brad.
na.
Okay, okay.
Di ba sa
Ano, brother? Nawala na naman. Hello?
Oh, nawala siya.
ng psychology? Hello.
Hello?
Wala, Brad mo, nawala.
Pwedeng i-chat,
Hello,
Brad.
hello,
Kung
hello.
mahina sa audio, chat na lang yung tanong.
Oh,
O
chat mo
pwede
na lang.
ma-chat? Mabuti?
Di ba marinig? Di ba?
O sige,
Di
Brad.
ba marinig?
Try
Choppy
again.
kanina.
Brad. Try again. Go ahead.
Try all again. Marinig.
Sipo.
Di pag-aaral sa college, mayroon tayong tinatawag Psychology 101 saka Business Psychology.
Opo.
Ito nakapokus no. Ngayon sa pag-aaral sa group of evangelism nito ano natin
Opo. Oh.
about
Sorry. Hindi ko talaga
Wala talaga man mo.
signal mo, Brad, dyan.
Mahirap,
Talaga.
putol-putol.
kaputol-putol ba?
Oh.
Oo, putol-putol.
Ang ibig mo bang sabihin, Brad, na mayroong business psychology, ganon, mayroong introduction to psychology, mayroon ngang tinatawag ngayon na environmental psychology, kung paano din natin para bang ma-relate sa evangelism. Actually, mahalaga ang psychology kasi it will make us more effective in understanding other people, lalo na yung ating mga tao na gustong ma-influence to Christ. Yan. Will become very good listeners. Maganda kasi ding paraan nyo bang we will help them with their problems. We listen to their problems and then process their pain, ipalabas yan, ganun. And so, yun, makatulong talaga ang psychology in that regard. Kailangan makatulong talaga sa preacher. Kasi pag may isang tao ngayon na depressed, ano bang gagawin ko? Babasahan po ba kaagad ng maraming verses upang mawala yung depression? Or i-pray ko pa siya? Makatulong talaga ang prayer. Pero it will help if we will facilitate, if we will process, pakinggan natin using some counseling techniques at saka itong understanding of the theory of psychology, mas maganda. Paglabas na dyan sa kanya naramdaman, ang ganda na ipasok natin yung mga verses na whatsoever things are lovely, just, and then meditating upon the word of God, and then we pray to the person. Kumbaga kung sa layman's point of view, pag mayroong infection na mamaga na yung sugat, tanggalin muna natin yung pus. Ano ba yung pus sa Tagalog? Sa Bisaya, tanggalin muna natin yung infection. Pagkatapos, saka pa natin lagyan ng antibiotic ng mga ointment. ipalabas muna. Kasi in figurative expression, marami ngayon na mayroong infection sa loob ng kanilang emotional life. Maraming mga taong depressed. Narinig na dungog tinay ko niya do, wala?
Oo, siguro. Doon siguro.
Oh.
May question sa chat room.
Narinig na?
Mayroon? Sa chat room? Saan yun?
Oo.
Paano ko basahin yung sa chat?
Baka mahirapan ka sa kwan siguro. Basahin ko na lang.
Sige.
Maaari po ba ma-determine in just one instance if one is a sociopath, psychopath?
No, we cannot do that in one instance because psychopath and sociopath usually are very charming people. They will put you in their pocket. Yung bang hindi mo malalaman, they are charming, they are intelligent, ang galing nila mag-handle, ang galing nila mag-impress sa iyo. Yan. So, hindi natin malaman in one encounter. Pero malalaman natin yan later on kung lalabas. Usually, ang kanilang, one of the trait sa mga taong ito, very manipulative. Pag ma-feel mo na yan, na they are manipulative, they are controlling, and they are already getting to your nerves, so to speak. Pero at one instance, hindi kagad. There is also a lot of psychological tests that would help, but these people, because they are very smart, they know how to take the test and cheat yung mga psychological test. So, nasa kuan talaga, nasa sabihin natin close observation. Ako, I cannot judge kahit pa, pero slowly mapipil ko, nako, controlling ito ha. Nandiyan nga yan. Pati sa mga mag-asawa, mayroon talaga. Controlling, magaling mananakit, ganyan. And then parang destructive, parang nababader na tayo sa kanila. So not in one instance. There's nothing like that. We got to do more observation first.
Okay,
Then,
thank you. Thank you, Brother Richard, sa sagot.
At saka,
That's
I
from
would
Brother Ryan.
recommend you Google, okay? You Google and I forgot now the name. He says
Ano sa mama?
like an Indian-looking doctor, a lady who is expert on that. Mayroon siyang mga study na accessible sa Google about psychotic, narcissistic, yan. Mga sociopath, psychopath. Usually, sabi ko nga, charming ito sila. Talagang ang galing. Kasi mayroon pa?
Hello, Brad. Hello,
Okay.
Brad. Opo,
Yes, Brad.
mabilis lang po siguro to. Ask ko lang po, doon po sa mga drug users, drug addicts,
Opo.
mentally problem, di ba?
Opo.
Bukod sa gamot na tinitake nila para gumaling sila, ilang percentage po ba na gagaling sila o makakatulong yung psychology pagdating na nila na para gumaling po sila, 'di ba? Nagpapamental po sila, no? Para po gumaling sila.
Kaya sa ganun, pag those who are in that case, yung mga nagda-drugs, I would say doon na talaga sa pupunta sa sabihin nating dependable at reliable na mga rehab centers. Itong kuan ba, itong magka-counseling tayo at mag-observe din ng principles sa psychology. Let's not do what we cannot do. when we know na it's beyond our capability, we should not pretend na kaya natin. We'll just say, okay, this is not my field, hindi ko ito kaya. Wala akong idea about drug therapy. Wala akong idea about rehab. Ikukunay ko kayo sa mga specialist niyan, psychiatrists, rehab centers. Yan ang gagawin natin ba? Pag mayroong gano'n ng mga case. At ako personally, hindi ako nag-deal sa mga gano'n. Kasi the mindset of drug people, hindi ba very affected sila yung psychedelic. Ang kailang behavior nag-iba dahil sa drugs na tinitake.
Yes po.
So, hindi ko yan, that's not my field. Kung willing sila talaga, i-encourage ko lang. Punta tayo sa rehab.
Yes po.
So, pag yung kaya lang natin ba ang ating i-handle.
Thank you po. Thank you po. Thank you
Sige
po.
po. O, walang anuman po.
Okay, sino pang nangailangan ng psychiatrist dyan? Wala na siguro, bro.
Wala na. Okay. So, later on, ako na ang magpa-counseling dyan. Pupunta ko sa Manila. Ano?